Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Gem State, the trials of Chad and Lori Daybell. My name is Andy from the Idaho Crime Squad, and today I was given the incredible opportunity to sit down with a member of the jury from Chad's trial, which wrapped up quite a few weeks ago. I'm here with juror number 9, who was gracious enough to sit down with us and talk a little bit about his experience. I want to start by saying thank you for your service to our state and the courts. So just to start off here, what is your first name, age, and what do you do for work?
My first name is Nick. I'm 28 years old, 29 November, and I am in the Air Force.
Nice. Okay. Well, thank you for your service as well. Are you local to Idaho?
I am, yeah. I wasn't actually born here, but I grew up in Mountain Home, since I was 3 years old.
Okay. Gotcha. Are you from California?
No, Wisconsin.
Just had to ask.
Yeah, not one of those.
So have you, prior to this experience, had you ever been called to jury duty before?
Never. This is my first time.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. Quite the experience. When you were originally summoned, did you have any idea that this case was ongoing or that it might be this case?
No idea. Honestly, for all I knew, this was already, done and over with. I kind of barely knew something was happening in Eastern Idaho, but
wow.
Just thrown in my face.
The duality is so interesting because people who follow true crime and who have been following this case were almost checking their mailbox every day to see if they were going to be the one to be summoned. So it's interesting to hear that you just had no idea it was ongoing and you probably thought it was over because of Lori Vale. So that's just interesting to hear. If you could put it simply, how would you describe the screening process? Was it different than you expected, the screening process for being selected?
I didn't really know what to expect. Looking back on it now, it was obviously a lot different than normal ones because we started with a pool of, I think the marshals told us 1,800 people.
I think me and Ryan talked about this previously, but I think all of us know someone who was summoned.
Yeah. It was big. It was big. But it was there's just so many people. And like I said, it was my first time. I just thought that was normal, maybe. I don't know. I had no idea until, days later.
Yeah.
The first day.
So tell me a little bit more about juries, how it went down. If my research is correct, you missed the first day, right?
So the very first callback, yes. Okay. So the very first day of my small group voir dire, the group of, I think they took, 16, 18, something like that. Small group of people. Yeah, I had missed that first recall.
Why'd you miss it?
Sorry.
You okay? Why'd you miss it?
Well, I set my alarm on my phone, but I did not plug my phone in. So
we've all been there.
Yeah, it just didn't go off, didn't wake me up.
Did you feel like everyone on the jury was qualified to be there at the end of the day?
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you almost feel underqualified to be there because of that?
No, not necessarily. At certain points, yes. At honestly, leading up to the deliberation, I was almost hoping that I wasn't going to be selected as one of the main guys. I almost wanted to be an alternate.
Yeah.
Just because it's a big decision. It's a lot of responsibility.
Sure. But were you aware that it was a death penalty case when you were being selected for the jury?
Yeah, they let us know pretty early on there. Okay.
I know that selection is a little bit more intense when it comes to death penalty cases. So that's why I'm grilling you on it. What did you know going into jury selection about this case? Did you know anything?
Not much. Like I mentioned, I knew something happened in Eastern Idaho. I must have seen it in passing in the news, and just, flipping the channels or whatever.
So you didn't have any friends or family talking your ear off about it or anything?
No, which is kind of crazy because my brother lived over there at the time. And he said that everyone, talking with him since, he said everybody there was, nobody didn't know about it. Nobody didn't talk about it.
It's fascinating to me because you are the first person that I've ever spoken to who didn't know a lot about this case.
Really?
So, and that might be because of my line of work, but yeah, it's fascinating to meet somebody who really didn't. I mean, you were the perfect juror, essentially. So, when did the gravity of the situation hit you that you were such a big part of such a high profile trial?
I mean, I feel like it hit me a couple times when I was actually selected, or some of the other jurors say last eliminated or not eliminated. Like everybody else is, kicked out. You're left.
Yeah.
But so yeah, probably at that point, and then the very first day of trial, I think, because it was like, okay, this is real. This is happening. Just trying to take it all in, trying to do your job.
And somewhere along the way, you realized that this was not only a murder trial, but this was probably the biggest murder trial to come out of Idaho so far, besides, aside from the Brian Koberger case. When did that happen for you?
I still didn't know that much about it until I was in the process. So I guess that one was more of a slow climb to realization of like, this is wild.
Sure.
Like, this is big.
Like, as you heard details, you were like, there's no way this isn't the biggest case I've ever heard of.
Yeah. And then honestly, later on, some of the marshals did tell us like, oh, this is national. This is worldwide even. Some people are watching from, wherever they are.
I mean, I know, speaking for myself, I was on my couch eating popcorn every day watching it. So, and, I'm in all the subreddits and all that stuff, hearing about everyone watching it. Even the small podcast episode I did about it, I had listeners in Australia and New Zealand and that kind of stuff. So it was such a large, the gravity of it was so large. So it's interesting to hear that you didn't quite wrap your brain around that until maybe not until after. Right,
exactly. Because we're not supposed to talk about it, look into it.
Can't be online. So
you're almost you're kept in the dark with as much as you already knew about it until it's over.
Wow. So I heard you say in other interviews that you were really taken with Zulema's testimony to the point where you physically couldn't stop writing notes even when you were supposed to. Was that the turning point for you for how you viewed Chad? And what was it specifically in the interview or in her testimony?
I don't know that it was it was definitely a turning point. I don't know how sharp it was of a turn, but I think for me, it was just, we kept hearing about, all this, the dark ratings, all the zombies, stuff like that. And we didn't really hear a lot of the details about what went into that. So being like the castings they did, and she had a lot of details about that, and the drawings she showed us as well. So it was an insight into more information about what we were trying to piece together, like what is happening. I just felt that she had a lot to add to that.
Yeah. In your personal opinion, just based off what you were feeling in the courtroom, what was the most eyebrow-raising, jaw-dropping moment for you and the jury and everyone in the courtroom?
I don't know that I can narrow down to one exact moment like that. It's kind of a slow build. I think I was really just focused on getting it all in, and then I'd think about it later, piece together what happened.
I can't imagine. The listeners know this is such a crazy case. I mean, this is about as crazy as it could possibly get. And the more information we learned, the more questions we had. Right. So I can't imagine you going into this and having the information laid out all in front of you in one dose. I mean, I got to give you kudos for being able to even begin to digest all of that information. So I don't blame you for not having one moment. Was there ever a moment where you felt like this was too much for you?
I don't think I ever thought that it was too much. I mean, I felt often that it was a lot. It was very mentally draining every day trying to, pay attention to everything, remember things. And especially early on, it's hard to decide what's important, what's kind of fluff, what's, determining all that.
Mm-hmm. How did you decompress?
If I had the energy still after, I would go to the gym, or I just put on a movie, or, read a book, something.
So do you think that there were days where you felt more drained than others?
Yes. Like sometimes there's one day in particular that I think about that was hard to even pay attention. I mean, we all did it, but it was rough. They were talking about the financial records, the flight details. It was just a lot of like important, but dull stuff.
Sure. I sat in Lori Vallow's trial for one of those days, and it was borderline hard to keep my eyes open. I mean, it was tough. So aside from that, was there ever a moment where you felt like this was too much pressure?
Well, kind of, yeah. I mean, as I said before, I didn't really want to be one of the main jurors deciding because it's just big. So a few times, probably also in the times that I guess parts of the case that were harder to be like harder to be sure what actually happened. Like the things like with Tammy, especially in the beginning, what happened? Did she die a death that was, natural or what, like what's happening? I don't know. And like, oh, what if I get that wrong? But that's earlier in the case, and so we don't have as many details. So it did get better as time went on.
So we'll kind of circle back to deliberation, but just as a brief moment, was Tammy a source of contention when it came to deciding if he was guilty or not?
As far as guilt, no, not really. Like, no, everybody was on the same page there.
Gotcha. Now, speaking as two people who have both seen the autopsy photos here, was that, speaking candidly, as big of a gut punch for you as it was for me?
I always feel kind of weird saying this, but like, no, not initially. Like it wasn't necessarily a gut punch, but the longer they just leave it up there though, they leave that picture up and you just look at it and you're hearing the details. And then I started thinking, well, it's awful. It's like this little boy who's the only people he's supposed to trust 100% betrayed him. And that got to me.
Did you feel a desperate need for justice in that moment?
I mean, well, yeah. He none of these people deserved it. Like it was awful.
What were you feeling? You had seen the autopsy photos several days in a row, but what did you feel each night when you were back at the hotel about them?
I mean, leaving most of the trial, I was able to kind of stop thinking about it and, leave it in the courthouse. But I did think about those probably for, the rest of the trial. Right after we saw him, every day. A few weeks later, it subsides a little, but I mean, it's rough. Like I listen to some true crime sometimes myself, and all those stories, they feel much further away. But being this connected to it, this close to it, I don't know, it felt way different.
It feels completely different. I still, it's been a year and a half since I saw the photos, and you can't quite scrub them from your brain.
Yeah.
They're just there forever. It's burned in there.
Yeah.
So I empathize with you because that was a hard view for sure. Switching gears here, did you ever feel like Do you feel like everyone was 100% honest during their testimony?
No, I don't. I don't think so.
Spill.
Well, I mean, I thought I got a feel for, who was, trying their best to say everything honestly as much as they could. Where I struggled was the Daybell children, especially. They, I don't know, they did not feel genuine. They didn't sound like they were going off memory either, really, especially Emma.
You felt like they were coached.
Yeah.
Yeah. I felt similarly. There was a couple people that I couldn't quite buy it, Yeah. Yeah. So I'm with you. Out of all the testimonies you heard, which do you think pushed the case in favor of the prosecution the most in the jury's eyes?
I think I know a big one for me was, what's his name? Agent Hart, I think. One of the FBI agents he helped a lot. Those presentations with all the cell phone data, letting us know where whose phone was where at what time, that was big. Yeah. I'm trying to remember. It's been a while now, but
now I asked this out of sheer curiosity because we had him on the podcast last week, but what did you feel about Detective Ray Hermosillo's?
His was, he started off everything right off the bat. He had, it was our first introduction to the whole story.
I believe he was a strong witness.
Yes, definitely. But hearing, sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Sorry, I lost what I was going to say.
Lost it. All right, no worries. Now, did everyone... Oh, sorry. Let me start over. Shifting gears again here. What was daily life for you like during the trial, starting with waking up?
So we met at an undisclosed parking garage. That's probably another part that made it feel big to me. It was like all these precautions put in place to keep us away from media, away from just anybody who would want to mess with it, anything like that. We met in an undisclosed parking garage. Words are hard today. And then we were vanned into the secure entrance of the courthouse. And so we didn't see anybody, any media the whole time. And then we were escorted to a room with no windows and crammed in there. And then we just wait. Just wait for court to start. And we're forced to be together, so we're I say forced friends in a good way. But then we go on, have our first session. Then we take a morning break. And bathroom breaks. Bathroom breaks take a while because, again, they have to secure the hallway, make sure nobody's around, and make sure nobody's in the bathroom. Then we can all go in. So that could take us, 20, 30 minutes sometimes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it could take a while. Yeah, then we go back in, and then we have a lunch break, usually about an hour long or so, or sometimes longer if they had to take care of, other court stuff outside of our presence. But
do you guys order every day?
So we didn't get to order any of our own food until we were deliberating, but it was always good. It was at local restaurants, probably 12 to 15 of them. Mm-hmm. So there's a good rotation.
What was your favorite?
There was a Mexican restaurant. I don't remember which one it was, but that was always good. We probably had that 4 or 5 times.
It's hard to miss with Mexican food.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. And then continuing on, what did dinner look like for you guys?
We were usually home by dinner. So
Were ya?
dinner was on our own. Yeah.
Oh, okay. And then did you guys have a bedtime?
No, not until we were deliberating.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, we weren't sequestered until deliberation.
Okay. And did everyone get along pretty well jury-wise? Was there ever any conflict aside from deliberations?
No, never. No, we got along very well. Everybody.
It's good.
And
It's good to
actually,
hear.
sometimes apparently we weren't very quiet either. Sometimes we were described as the riotous laughter down the hall.
Well, that's good. I mean, there has to be some sort of silver lining in your experience. So I'm glad that it was with the jury. Let's spend some time talking about deliberation, actually. You obviously had 2 parts of deliberation, right?
Right.
So let's talk about part 1. What was the general vibe going into it?
Relief was a big part of it. Just being done with, you're hit with so much and so many details that you want to talk about and you just can't. You can't talk about it with anybody. So you just got to wait.
I cannot imagine. I'm a yacker myself, so I can't imagine not being able to talk about things that are happening for 8 weeks straight and some life-changing events.
Yeah. Yeah. So the very, very first part, for I don't know, maybe 20 minutes, 30 minutes, we kind of just hung out, waited, just did nothing.
Yeah. Decompressed a little.
Exactly. Yeah. And then we all circled up and we just talked. We just talked about what we just heard for the last 8 weeks or so.
And that's interesting that it adds a layer of nuance to it because you guys have been bonding for the last 8 weeks and becoming closer and closer. And especially to hear that you guys didn't have necessarily any sort of issues throughout that. So I'm sure that, you're bonded to those people in a way that you've never experienced or that you'll probably never experience again.
Right.
So that's interesting to hear that you got that first little while just to decompress together and then finally opened it up.
Yeah.
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 Now, obviously, you had to be extremely thorough when combing through, a mountain of evidence. It was endless. What topic took the jury the longest to discuss?
I can't really think of one in particular that took a whole lot longer than the others. We looked through and double, triple checked some of the dates, some of the location data on the cell phone. But other than that, it was pretty straightforward.
Okay. Now, I think I know the answer at this point, and this is a question that I think everyone wants to know. Were there any jury members who went into deliberation thinking Chad was innocent or played devil's advocate? And did you falter at any point?
Not one. Not one of us thought that guy was innocent of any of the crimes charged against him.
I think just because of the sheer amount of time it took you guys to deliberate, I think that everyone kind of knew that.
Yeah.
I don't think that there was ever a thought that one person was holding out or anything because you guys were pretty quick with your deliberations, which was awesome. So that's good to hear. I'm glad that you guys didn't have any conflicting opinions as far as that goes. And, that's rare. So now part 2 of deliberations was deciding if Chad would receive the death penalty. Was there information provided to you guys about what the death penalty entails?
So they give us that set of instructions that lets us know. It basically tells us how the law is applied to it. So there has to be an aggravating factor, which is I guess that's more for the guilt phase. But for the death penalty, it has to meet each one of the Sorry, I haven't thought about this in a while.
That's
I'm trying to remember
Take
here.
your time.
It's like the aggravating factors, right?
Yeah. Yeah, the aggravating factors, they have to I believe that's in the first phase, though.
Is that?
I could be wrong.
Okay, so let me reword my question. When you were deciding if Chad would be put on death row, essentially, did they provide you any information about what that's going to look like for him in the next 30 to 40 years? Because that's how long it usually takes for someone to be executed in Idaho.
I mean, no, that sort of information, I want to call it like extra, is not really given to us. Like from the very beginning, it was, hey, pay attention, decide the facts, and that it's up to you. And so that kind of thing is like, again, extra. They just told us, they gave us the instructions that said, like, this is how you decide guilt. Like, did he meet, this and this and this factor? Or for the death penalty, were these things done? Or some of the very specific ones, like they had decided that, like a date that Lori moved to Rexburg. If that's true, then move on. And like, yeah, that's part of.
Okay, so they simplify it for you so that it can be easy. Okay.
And they didn't tell us anything about what would happen after. It was just like, do your job, get out.
Have you found yourself doing any research into the death penalty since this case?
Not much, just a little bit. Just like I kind of stray away from that stuff to begin with, but being involved with it, I did look a little bit.
Can you kind of walk us through part 2 of Deliberations and what that looked like for you guys? Was it similar to part 1 of Deliberations, or was there a little bit more controversy because you guys are picking something so, in some cases egregious?
It was similar to part 1 in the sense that, well, we're all mostly on the same page. There were a few hangups with one aspect, with Tammy's part in this. And I don't know how much I want to go into it, just out of respect, out of the individual's wishes. They didn't want to be, put on blast or anything. But trying to match up the exact wording of the instructions that we got to put it all into. Sorry, I keep losing my train of thought.
You're okay. You're walking me through what Deliberation looked like.
Yes. So Tammy. I mean, and I don't blame them. It's really, I was kind of on their side myself in thinking that, like, you have to decide if these crimes, if these actions were like excessively, I don't remember the exact wording, but like vile, abhorrent.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember what the words were, but.
And there was a hang up there.
Yeah. There's strong words that you have to exactly. Sorry, words are not coming to my mind right now.
Okay. So it had to fit into a very specific type of dialogue.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And it was hard to put that, to match that with Tammy's situation.
Was it hard for everybody, or do you feel like there were some that were holding out?
There were a couple of us that were not totally sure.
And that includes
that
you.
I would say, yeah. But after talking about it for a while and really thinking on it, at one point we took a big break, and a lot of us just walked the hallways, just cool off, calm down, try to think straight.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's big.
Come in with fresh eyes.
Yeah,
for sure. Do you have any regrets regarding the verdict?
No, not one.
That's good.
Yeah.
I think everyone in Idaho is very pleased with this verdict. So that's good to hear. Do you feel like justice was served?
I think as much as it could be. There's not a whole lot more we can do. I don't think. I mean, inside the restraints of the law, of course.
Sure, legally. Yeah. I would agree with that. I think that this is the best possible outcome for what we set out to do.
Right.
And since we have found the children and everything, I think that this was the best possible outcome that we could have asked for. Is there anything that you would like to add or to touch on?
No, nothing comes to mind.
Thank you so much, Nick, for sitting down with me. You were tasked with something nearly impossible, and no one wants to do it. I'm very glad it fell into your hands and the other members of the jury. So thank you.
Sure.